weeks. So you know exactly the numbers you're
Mr.
talking
Hegseth,
about.
you have testified that American taxpayers need to know where their dollars are going. And as you sit here today, you can't provide us with a basic answer to the most simple question that you should be able to answer to each and every American
You're
taxpayer.
asking a question to an answer with an answer you already have.
No, I'm asking you for a breakdown where you said you will be accountable for every taxpayer dollar. You cannot tell us where any of the $25 billion in taxpayer funds that have gone to fund your war of choice in Iran. And
Representative Maggie Goodlander asked Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, where did $25 billion of American taxpayer money go in just 60 days of war? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the man who promised accountability for every single dollar, could not answer. Then she used his own words against him. Watch this.
Chair, and I recognize a gentlelady from New Hampshire, Ms. Goodlander.
I want to thank our witnesses for being here today, and I want to begin by getting right to it, since my time is limited, on this $1.5 trillion budget request. Mr. Hegseth, you testified last year and you testified again today that you will be accountable for every American taxpayer dollar that comes to the department, where it goes and why. That's really important since, as it's been pointed out, the department has failed 8 audits. The department remains on GAO's high-risk list. The Inspector General just last year alone identified billions of dollars that could have been put to better use, and in questioned costs, that is spending that raised red flags. So this is a crisis right now in accountability of where the dollars of the American taxpayers who are in the middle of a cost crisis, where this money is going. I want to ask about your war in Iran. And Mr. Hurst, you testified earlier today that $25 billion has been spent to date. I just want to clarify that that is money, that taxpayer dollars that have been spent already in this war.
$25 reflects the costs of the war, right? So we've already spent the dollars on munitions and things like that. So we're factoring in cost of munitions expended into that total.
So how much of that has gone towards munitions? Does that include the munitions that have been spent to date?
Yeah, that reflects the munitions that have been spent to date and other operational costs.
Can you give us a breakdown of what those costs are?
We'll work to get you guys a product that has a detailed breakdown of those costs.
Yeah, my concern here is, Mr. Hegseth, you've testified repeatedly that you're going to be accountable for each and every American taxpayer dollar that you spend, that you're going to be accountable for the rationale. Here we are 60 days in to your war of choice in Iran, and you can't give us an answer on a breakdown of the basic breakdown of American taxpayer dollars that have been spent in your war of choice? That's a question for Mr. Hurst. Right now, as you sit here now, you
We're
cannot...
happy to give you a breakdown. We'll provide you a product after this hearing.
Well, I would love for you to give us this breakdown now and explain to us, was this unbudgeted costs, or was this something the department planned for in advance, since you were appropriated $1 trillion last year?
The department deals with contingency operations all the time within its normal budget.
So this was not budgeted for. My point here is, you know, and General Kane, you've testified to this. We all understand, for you to do your jobs, you need Congress to pass budgets. For us to do our jobs, we need you to give us the details and to be accountable to American taxpayers. And so I got to say, it's an extraordinary dereliction that as you sit here, you cannot account for billions of dollars that have already been spent.
You're
in this
briefed
war.
on munitions every week. You and your entire staff have every,
asking
just so the
you-
American public know, it's
Mr.
not as if you
Hegseth,
don't have munitions levels.
Mr.
You do
Hegseth,
from us every single week. So you know
Hegseth,
exactly the numbers you're talking
Mr. Hegseth,
about.
you have testified that American taxpayers need to know where their dollars are going. And as you sit here today, you can't provide us with a basic answer to the most simple question that you should be able to answer to each and every American
You're
taxpayer.
asking a question to an answer with an answer you already have.
No, I'm asking you for a breakdown where you said you will be accountable for every taxpayer dollar. You cannot tell us where any of the $25 billion in taxpayer funds that have gone to fund your war of choice in Iran. And I look forward to getting details from our witnesses after this hearing, because the American taxpayers need to know. Mr. Hegseth, can I ask you, do you know what the average cost of a gallon of gas was in this country on February 28th?
Well, it depends on where you live. If you live in California, it's $8.
$4.83. Do you know what the average cost of a gallon of gas is today?
Much higher in California.
$4.23. I gotta say, Mr. Hegseth, you said you've got a crack economic team that's looking at the impacts of this war on the American taxpayer, and you can't answer this basic question. That should shock the conscience of every American. General Kane, I want to come back to something, a really important principle, and my time is limited. You testified to an important and bedrock principle of American law, that our service members follow lawful orders and lawful orders only. Is that right? Do you agree with the statement, quote, the military won't follow unlawful orders?
I do.
Mr. Hegseth, do you agree with that statement?
I do, but understand what you're insinuating at a partisan point.
I'm not. I'm actually quoting you directly, Mr. Hegseth, from April 12th, 2016. And I appreciate that on the record, you've clarified this important principle of American
Gentlelady's
law.
time's expired.
Let us break this down because Representative Maggie Goodlander did something that very few members of Congress do well. She came in with simple questions, built a clear and undeniable record, and finished by using Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's own past words to hold him accountable in the present. Let us start from the beginning. Representative Maggie Goodlander represents New Hampshire, and she sits on the House Armed Services Committee, the committee currently being asked to approve a $1.5 trillion Department of Defense budget. She opened by reminding Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth of a promise he has made repeatedly. He has testified before Congress, both last year and again that very day, that he will be personally accountable for every single American taxpayer dollar that comes into his department, where it goes, and why. His words, his promise, on the record. And Representative Maggie Goodlander pointed out that this promise matters more right now than at almost any point in recent memory, because the Department of Defense has failed 8 consecutive independent audits. 8 audits. In a row. Failed. The department remains on the Government Accountability Office's high-risk list. That means independent government watchdogs have formally flagged the Department of Defense as one of the most financially at-risk and poorly managed operations in the entire federal government. And just last year alone, the Inspector General identified billions of dollars that could have been put to better use and billions more in spending that raised serious red flags. This is the financial track record of the department asking Congress for $1.5 trillion, and the American families being asked to fund all of it are themselves in the middle of a cost crisis. Higher grocery bills, higher fuel costs, higher prices on almost everything. So Representative Maggie Goodlander asked a question that every American taxpayer deserves an answer to. $25 billion has reportedly been spent on the war in Iran in roughly 60 days. She first confirmed with the official in the room that this number reflects actual taxpayer dollars already spent, including munitions that have already been fired in combat. The answer was yes. The $25 billion figure includes munitions expended and other operational costs already incurred. Then Representative Maggie Goodlander asked the next logical question. Can you give us a breakdown of where those costs went? The answer from the room was, we will work to get you a detailed breakdown after this hearing. Representative Maggie Goodlander did not accept that. She said plainly, here we are 60 days into this war, and you cannot give us a basic breakdown of how $25 billion of American taxpayer money was spent. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth tried to redirect. He said Representative Maggie Goodlander is asking a question, to which she already has the answer, because the committee receives classified weekly munitions briefings. But Representative Maggie Goodlander shut that down immediately. She said, I am not asking for classified information. I am asking you, the man who promised accountability for every taxpayer dollar, to stand here in front of Congress and the American public and give a basic accounting of how their money was spent. That is not a classified question. That is the most fundamental question of congressional oversight. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth could not answer it. Representative Maggie Goodlander called it exactly what it is, an extraordinary dereliction. Then she moved to something personal and immediate and felt by every single American family, every single time they fill up their gas tank. She asked Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth a simple factual question. Do you know what the average cost of a gallon of gas was, in this country, on February 28th? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth deflected immediately. He said it depends on where you live, and brought up California. Representative Maggie Goodlander gave him the national average, $2.83 per gallon. Then she asked him, do you know what the average cost of a gallon of gas is today? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth again deflected to California. Representative Maggie Goodlander gave him the current national average, $4.23 per gallon. In 60 days, the average American family went from paying $2.83 to $4.23 every single time they fill up their tank. That is a $1.40 increase per gallon in 60 days, directly tied to this war. For a family filling up twice a week, that is real money, coming directly out of their household budget, every single week. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who has specifically said his department has a dedicated economic team monitoring the war's impact on American taxpayers, could not answer what a gallon of gas costs today. Representative Maggie Goodlander said what needed to be said. That should shock the conscience of every American. You have an entire team specifically tracking how this war is hitting people's wallets, and you cannot tell us the price of a gallon of gas. That is not a team doing its job, and it is not a secretary doing his. Then Representative Maggie Goodlander closed with something precise and something powerful. She turned to the general in the room and asked him to confirm a bedrock principle of American military law. Do you agree that service members follow lawful orders and lawful orders only? The general confirmed it immediately and without hesitation. Then Representative Maggie Goodlander turned to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and asked him the same question. Do you agree that the military will not follow unlawful orders? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said he agrees, but immediately accused Representative Maggie Goodlander of making a partisan political point. And then she delivered the sharpest moment of the entire exchange. She told him calmly, I am not making a partisan point. I am quoting you directly. From April 12, 2016. Those were his own words from nearly a decade ago. And she said she appreciates that he has now confirmed this important principle on the official congressional record for the American people watching at home. It was a masterclass in preparation. She did not argue with him. She did not accuse him. She simply used his own past statements to get him to reaffirm on the record a principle that has never been more important to establish clearly than right now. So here is the full picture of what this exchange showed us. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth promised accountability for every taxpayer dollar. 60 days and $25 billion into a war, he cannot provide a basic breakdown. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has a team tracking the war's economic impact. He cannot tell us the current price of a gallon of gas. The department has failed 8 consecutive audits, remains on the government's high-risk list, and is asking for $1.5 trillion more. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed on the record today, using his own words from 2016, that the military will not follow unlawful orders. Representative Maggie Goodlander came prepared. She asked simple questions. She built a clear record, and she let the answers do the work. That is what oversight looks like. Share this with someone who needs to understand what is happening. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe so you are here for the next one.